Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Get ready for truth bombs, belly laughs, and the kind of accent that turns car into a two-syllable adventure. Here's your host, Sean.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Liberty right here on the SHR Media Network. Thank you so much for joining us, me, the chatters. My good friend, the Cosmic Bard, is already in there. You have 5 minutes, Cosmic Bard. You have 5 minutes to get it done and get back. And I don't care how much your broken ankle hurts. I expect you to be front and center in chat room. And if you want to be front and center in chat room, see what I did there? You can get me on X. You can get me on Twitch. You can get me on Facebook Live and all those places. But if you want to get with the other chatters, and there's a group of them that comes in, Canadian Heavy Haul just chiming in and saying hello, having an adult beverage while the truck is parked for the night. If you want to join the other chatters, go to SHR Media on YouTube, youtube.com/SHR Media Group. You'll see the little live screen. Click on me and jump in the chat and just join us for an hour of information, cursing, and good old-fashioned American fun. Got a ton to talk about. First and foremost, unless you've been living under some sort of rock, you saw this. President Trump posted earlier on Truth Social, congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire at approximately 6 hours from now when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions for 12 hours, at which point the war is to be considered ended officially. Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire. And upon the 24th hour, an official end of the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful. On the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will, I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, for having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have been going on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't and never will. God bless Israel, God bless Iran, and God bless the Middle East, and God bless the United States of America, God bless the world, President Donald J. Trump. I'm sorry, I did forget about the tomfoolery. That was a good point by Canadian Heavy Haul. There's plenty of tomfoolery to be had in the chat room and on this show in general. So they announced a ceasefire. And if you're saying, well, that's really weird, Sean, because right now, Israel is under rockets and missile alerts from Iran. And that would be yes. And here's why. This is all in Pacific time. I did it to make it easier so you don't have to figure out what it is in Israeli time. In Pacific time, midnight Eastern time, June 24th is 9 p.m. PID. So as of 9 p.m. tonight, that's the first milestone. That is when Iran is supposed to stop firing. 12 hours later, that is when Israel is supposed to stop fighting. And then a full ceasefire 24 hours from 9 p.m. this evening. And you may say to yourself, that's really weird. Why do they do this? Why do they have a ceasefire? And it's a question I've always asked. Why do they have a ceasefire and then continue to keep fighting. Like, all right, you guys came to an agreement at a table. Why? Because there's objectives that both sides feel that they have to meet, I guess. And it's not uncommon. I have a list right here, and I'm going to get into the whole event, the whole Israel and Iran interaction, how America was involved in a second. But as I was watching social media before I went on the air, everyone's freaking out. Oh, where's the ceasefire? Where's the ceasefire? Well, we haven't met the times yet. And then I have a kind of a theory that is absolutely a wingnut theory that I'm going to float by you. So, just real quick, sir, it shows that initial ceasefires that held, even though there was post ceasefire conflict. In other words, a ceasefire was agreed upon, the time passed, and there was still conflict in combat after the fact, but it still worked out. The Korean War armistice, that had firing after the fact, the Yom Kippur War, Bosnia and Herzegovina ceasefire. I wasn't expecting to say Herzegovina tonight. The first Gulf War, the Nagorno and Karabakh War in 2020. Good evening, Jersey Joe. Israel and Hamas in 2014. The Second Congo War in 1999. The Russia-Georgia War in 2008. And it goes on and on. So if you're asking yourself why, it's because A, we haven't gotten there yet. B, the times for the ceasefire haven't been hit yet. And C, sometimes you have commanders who don't like the ceasefire and sometimes do stuff that they're not supposed to be doing until they get shut down. Now, is that a possibility right now? Well, pardon me. If you've watched any social media from people who fled Iran and still have relatives there, some information that's leaking out of Iran. And again, it's hard to confirm any of this, but a lot of it sounds realistic. Tehran, as a government, Mission Ready Men in the chat, the Phantoms in the chat, Jersey Joe's in the chat, you should be in the chat. BZ will not be in the chat. His computer decided to die on him, so he's working on that. But there's information that's slowly leaking out of Iran that Iran, the government, is in complete and utter disarray. There was a lot of deaths of high-powered, high-standing Iranian officials. There's also some rumors floating around, and again, rumors, I don't know, but this brings me to my theory that the Ayatollah may have been hit today. There was massive, massive strikes in Tehran, and all of them were at the Revolutionary Guard bases, headquarters. Some of them were bunkers. Israel bombarded it today. And that brings me to my next theory. Hey, Buffoon of the Week is here. Check out Buffoon of the Week on YouTube. Great, great, great follow. Thank you, Buffoon of the Week. So that leads me to my theory that I was kind of throwing around in my head. What happens? Hey, Grim, nice to see you. Holy cow. Grimshaw's in the chat room. Good job, buddy. So what happens if the Ayatollah is no longer and a vast majority of the Iranian government no longer exists on this plane? Well, for the short term, it depends on what the factions under them do, the ones that are unleashed. If you have two factions, one Buffoon of the Week says, my theory, someone went in heavy on World War III merchant Tehran and now they're screwed. I agree. Never mind the amount of Soros money that went to the free Iran shirts and all the other stuff in this country. But we've seen this before when the leader gets taken out. Oftentimes you get two, sometimes three groups of high-ranking officials in that country, and they all want to do separate things, and they're all pulling for power. And different sections of the military and the government are doing different things because they're answering to this person. Is that a possibility right now? Yeah. I haven't seen, and I don't know if anyone else has seen, proof of life of the Ayatollah since the last few days. I haven't seen, and tweets are not a proof of life. I mean, actual proof of life. And we know he's in a bunker, but there were talks last week on a lot of the quote unquote back channels. Oh, good. We can start the show. Cosmic Bard has returned to chat. We've heard through a lot of the back channels that Israel, Mossad, knows and knew where his bunker was. So if it's really hard because I'm not a big we should be involved in regime change, and we're not. Our bombers that flew in on the 21st, and by the way, just it still blows my mind, even though it's 2025, and maybe I'm a little bit of a simpleton, that they can fly from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, halfway around the world, hit a target, and fly all the way back and be on target. Fordow fuel enrichment plant allegedly destroyed. Nance nuclear facility allegedly hit. Esfahn uranium conversion and centrifuge production, and 2 IGRC Quds Force command centers were allegedly destroyed. It boggles my mind that, I mean, I'm so glad that my buddy Grim's in the chat room, and I'm also glad that he's sitting here knocking my setup right now. But you know where I am. Come on over, help me out. But the fact that they can fly halfway around, it still blows my mind. And thank you to those who serve and what they do. It is just absolutely incredible. And they're not the only ones over there. As we know, there's been a military buildup over there. A lot of equipment and people are over there right now. We wish them well. Iran did the most Iranian thing in the world today. And they called us. Do I think he flew to Russia? No, I would think that he would probably go to one of the few Middle East countries that he's friendly with, because he'd probably want to stay close. I mean, look at what happened with the Shah, right? He fled to the UK and he's been there since, and he has a lot less influence. We're going to talk about his son here as the show progresses. So I think he wants to stay close just in case, because I'll stay on this topic instead of jump around. I'll stay on the what if the Ayatollah is not there, or if he's out of power. There is a lot of there's so many little tidbits that you can pull, because Iran has all but shut down the internet in Iran, the Iranian government, I should say. That doesn't mean that there's zero video and information coming out, but there is almost zero information coming out. So a lot of the information we're getting a third-hand, second-hand, cell phone text, whatever. But the last check on the Iranian people is that even before all of this started, they were getting fed up. You've seen a few uprisings in Iran over the last decade or so that get shut down because the Iranian government has the resources to focus and kill all of them and put them in prison. Right now, it's chaos in Iran. And Iran's a big country, and it's got a couple of big cities. But Tehran is the capital for a reason. Tehran is an absolute shit show from right now, from all reporting, from all video that you've seen, from people coming out. The IRGC is all but dismantled as of right now. The Revolutionary Guard, which is essentially the hand of the Ayatollah, everybody who is doing things like what do they call them? The decency patrols and stuff like that, to make sure everyone's being Muslim and not partying and not enjoying themselves. They're all called up to service, from what I understand. So local law enforcement is not really around. So now you have this potential for it to expand internally. Comment from the chat, Grimshire Aviation. I just read that B2 has a bathroom and a bunk to let them sleep. That's insane that there's that much room in it. Yeah, but they probably can't stand up anywhere in it. Russia would be the first choice, but Afghanistan is my likely opinion, Cosmic Bard, as to where the Ayatollah went. Look, the Ayatollah, where he would flee, I mean, you have Oman, you have a couple of the smaller countries. Afghanistan's a potential. I don't know if he would go to Russia right now. Look, Russia just told him to cut the shit a few days ago. China told him to cut the shit a few days ago. So I don't know if he would flee to a place. Look, I said this on my last show, or I said this Saturday during the special broadcast. The Ayatollah and the mullahs are different animals. They're not like these other leaders that were more narcissistic, your Saddam Husseins, your Gaddafis, even Xi and Putin, where it's all about power and control, but they protect themselves immensely, right? They don't want to die. They want to live forever. They want to amass as much control, turn everything communist, yada, yada, yada. Canada Heavy Hall said he probably came to Canada. Yeah, the Canadian government probably flew him back. Um, but they're a different breed. When you're dealing with religious zealots, when you're dealing with people who would die for their cause and be a martyr and get their 72 virgins, probably male, doesn't matter. When you get into the mindset of those people, and by all accounts, the Ayatollah is, yes, he wants power and control over his people, but when it is his time, he will go and take everybody with him and still consider himself a martyr. That's like the ultimate death for them, right? So having said that, he does not want to be away from his seat of power for too long at risk of harm to himself. Yeah, Russia could protect him, China would protect him. They would have a better infrastructure to protect him. There's less chance of the Mossad walking in and taking him out in those countries. That being said, he needs to be closer to his equipment and people who surround him and take care of him to retain that power. If he leaves and he takes all those people with him, or even a lot of those people with him, the country's done. It's done as we know it, which brings me to my next segment, which was actually my fifth segment, but me being me, I always do things out of order. So, what would happen if the Ayatollah fell? And this is a question that I think people have been asking for some time now, and I think it's a question that you need to answer. But you have to remember how it all got here. In 1979, there was an Islamic revolution. The Ayatollah, who was he in France? He went to Iraq and he went to, I think, France for a while, and he started the Islamic movement, the Islamic revolution, the Islamic push that became what Iran is today. So when he returned, they overthrew the Shah. For those who don't speak Iranian, let me help you. That means king. And they informed the Islamic Republic of Iran. He's been in power, or they've been in power ever since. The first Khomeini died in 89. And since they've come to power, this is funny. I've had a couple of people on X who started well, what did Iran ever do to you? When they ask why the US is involved. Look, since 1979 is when the Shah fell, they took our hostages. You might have heard about that. It was kind of a big deal over here. Ever since then, they funded terrorism all over the world that has led to the deaths of almost 1,000 Americans, many of which service members. They've also funded Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and numerous other small groups, including Al Qaeda as it started up way back in the day. Iran has been trying and has been open and yelling death to America. They've called us the Great Satan. As a matter of fact, the original Ayatollah coined the phrase of America being the Great Satan. That was like his key phrase, right? So, and then they took the country over and all hell broke loose in the Middle East. Not that the Middle East was entirely stable before that. No, it wasn't. But Iran before that was a very pro-Western modern country. If you go back, if you look at the photographs, you see women being educated, you see women walking around dressed what we would consider normal, shorts, skirts, whatever. You had a very modern society. They were educated, they were intelligent, they were prosperous. And yeah, if you go back to the 51 overthrow, when the CIA essentially put the Shah in charge, it started rough, but through the years, they got pretty good. They got pretty modern. It was a nice place to live. People used to visit and vacation in Iran. It was like Lebanon, the same thing. So now all of this has happened, and here we are. It's 2025. America just dropped a bunker busters in Iran. You have Israel bombing them. You had the October 7th attacks that Iran funded. You had the missile strikes, what was it, in April on Israel from Iran, and then we are today. So the question is, where will we be tomorrow? Well, if the Ayatollah stays in power, he's lost a lot of power. Where all estimates right now is that their nuclear program has been pushed back 20 to 35 years as far as making a nuclear weapon. And for those saying, well, it's only for power, it's only for electricity, it's only so his people can see and watch TV and yada, yada, yada. No, it's not. So for civilian electricity purposes, you need 3 to 5% of enriched uranium. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but that is what I read. I did not inherently know that. I educated myself on that. And now there are numerous other, including the UN, who've said, we think they're actually at the 90% capacity in some regard. But even for them to enrich to 60 shows that they are no longer exploring it for civilian power. Again, these are people that would die for their religion and be martyrs and take everybody else with them. They're people who have actively for 40 years attacked innocent people, neighbors, military members from all different branches. In Iraq, when we were in the Iraq war, they were funding a lot of the insurgents that were killing our soldiers in Iraq. These are horrible, horrible human beings. They are animals, in my humble opinion. Not the Iranian people themselves. It's like China. The Chinese people are fine. I have no issue with that. It's the leadership I have a problem with. And the same thing, most of the Iranian people, I don't think buy into this, but they don't have a choice. It's like the Russians. The same thing, right? But as I said before, the difference between all of them, including Kim Jong-un, Haro, and North Korea, is that's a narcissism. This dude will take everybody with him and not think to. Mutually assured destruction does not bother him, or it just doesn't make him sweat. So if he comes back into power, they're 35 years behind on their nukes. On top of that, the amount of damage to their military infrastructure, leadership, equipment, technology, manufacturing. I mean, I don't even know if they have an Air Force anymore to even speak of. The biggest, saddest thing in all of this was watching the F-14s get taken out when we could have brought them home and actually, made something, made a museum out of them, or maybe, who knows, flew them again in events. So it's something. You could have done something with the F-14s. Yeah, we're all nostalgic for the F-14. Cosmic Bard and Mission Ready Men, thank you for the 60-90% comment. I appreciate it. Number of good men and women that lost to Iranians IEDs cannot be overstated, and that is entirely true. Grimshire Aviation, yes, the dictators in Iran are not our friends whatsoever. Iraq was rough. I was there in 08. Grim, I know I've said this to you a million times, but thank you for your service, sir. And it was harsh. So if the Ayatollah is still in power, let me get back to what I was saying, because I'm jumping into chat and that screws me all up. Where can he go? Well, I don't think there's a lot he can go. The next couple of years will be rebuilding. Yes, they still have a couple of missiles that they can fire. The problem with that is, by all accounts, is every time they fire a missile, the platform they fire from is marked and destroyed by the Israeli Air Force, which is what they do. So you can't tell me that out of the hundreds of missiles that they fired, even if half of their launches got taken out, if they can keep up enough of an offensive threat to really be concerned about, especially given the now, I think it's 85 to 90% interception rate by Israel on their missiles. So his military is kaput. His infrastructure is kaput. By the way, I saw a great comment on X, and I wish I knew who said this, and whoever it was really made an astute point. For a country that has so much oil and the potential to put solar panels everywhere in the country, the thought that they were enriching uranium for electricity is just stupid, considering they have all that energy potential just sitting there. But I digress. So I think Iran ends up kind of like Gaddafi did. Remember when Gaddafi went away for like 10 years and nobody really heard about him after Operation El Dorado Canyon? And he wasn't as crazy. And that was in regard to Lockerbie, Scotland, Pan Am Flight 103. He wasn't as crazy, and that's really what turned the corner for him, right? he all of a sudden he's going to get the Saddam streak. Yeah, he might get it, and that's if it lasts that long. The one thing Grimshaw said, he's going to get the Saddam treatment for striking civilian targets. Look, it's one of two things. Either Mossad's going to take him out one way or the other, the Air Force did it or whatever, or the people are going to take him out, and however they get there, that's up for discussion too. But I don't think I don't think he has the infrastructure and the power and control to maintain anymore. So I think even if he is still alive, he's going to be short-lived. And I could be wrong. I'm the first one to admit it. This is just trying to piece all of this information together as it comes in. And information out of Iran is hot, man. It doesn't float. Even in Iraq, you had a lot more information coming out than you do in Iran. It's one of those shut-off countries. It would be like if South Korea went back to war with North Korea, it would be hard to know what was going on the North Korean side because they have such limited information that comes out. So let's pretend that the Ayatollah is deceased or is fleeing the country. What happens then? Well, there's always a chance that another religious zealot comes in and takes over, and the country doesn't advance, but maybe it stops bombing its neighbors, right? Maybe not. That's always a chance. You have to, in the Middle East, you always have to just look at worst case scenario when it comes to stuff like this, because that is percentage wise most likely the outcome. Not always. Look at Egypt. Look at some other countries. There's a lot of countries who have, in Jordan, in new generations, have changed their ways. But you still have to kind of look at that potential as being there. Or a lot of people came out or have been having the son of the Shah. I'm trying to look at, I had it in his name in my head and I can't find it right now, and I apologize. I wrote it in my notes and now I can't find it. But this is, did I skip a page in my notes, ladies and gentlemen? I am dumb enough to do this, so yeah. I did. I'm missing a whole segment of my notes, segment 5. But he's the son of the Shah. He's been in the UK since the Shah fell. His sister had passed away a couple of years ago. He would be equivalent to the crown prince of the country. He's been on the air like crazy. He's been all over the news and allegedly has met with some leaders in Europe and abroad and had meetings either on the phone or in person. And the running theory right now is if Ayatollah is dead and it's time for regime change, he said he would come back in and essentially take charge until they figured out a democratic system and elect a democratic leader and help stabilize and enrich the country and bring it back to what it was. Grimshaw Aviation says, we've come so far in the world with keeping the peace in the Middle East. Iran is the worst when it comes to hating Israel out of all the other Middle Eastern countries. Yes, Reza Pahlavi. Thank you. Mission Ready Men. You're 100% right. That is the name. And I apologize. There's so many names right now that I'm horrible with that I had to write them all down. I don't know where it went. Grimshaw brings up a great point. You have Egypt, Jordan, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar. There's a couple other countries in there too who have all found a way to coexist with Israel, even though their religion says otherwise, right? And I know there's Sunni and the Shia, and there's a huge difference there as well. But essentially, they've modernized to the point where they said, okay, Israel's not going anywhere. We have to stop attacking them. And this was back in the 70s is when it really started. I think it was Egypt took the first step. And we have to really start just learning to live with our neighbor and actually, be respectful. And they've done so. Look, you had the Abraham Accords under Trump's last administration. You've had talks of Saudi Arabia opening up trade with them. You've had so many other countries where it's like, yes, we're going to start actually coexisting and not trying to blow them up every 10 minutes. Pardon me. And it's worked out well. So now Iran, who is the biggest destabilizer in the Middle East and beyond, they are the worst of the worst. They are horrible, horrible, horrible for everybody, really, the Middle East and beyond. But there's now a chance for that to turn a corner and actually start to come up into the year 2025. Right now, they're still stuck in 14 something, but as a government, and the people are stuck in like the early 80s just because they don't have technology, money, or power. That would be an incredible change just to stop. And look, Ayatollah goes away. Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis all of a sudden have anemic resources. That's not saying they'll have zero resources, but it'll be anemic. It'll be incredibly different from the full-blown military that they were today. And they are full-blown paramilitary groups. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Cosmic Bard comments in the chat, there's so much money in the Middle East that instead of war, they want to take over the world. They have the means financially and a lot more blessing from the world. It's stupid not to do this. And if I read that weird, essentially what he's saying is they have so many other resources that they don't need to rule the world. They'll be just fine with the resources that they have, and they're better off being a good citizen of the world. And I agree with that statement. And with that, I got to take a break, and I got to try to find my 5th page of notes. It might fall on the floor. When we come back, I want to talk about all the pant wetting that happened in this country on the left and some ultra magas about the attacks in Iran. Right back on the SHR Media Network.
Freedom. One nation in all of human history was built on that bedrock. Ours. A republic of the people, by the people, and for the people. Self-government requires freedom, just as freedom requires an individual willingness to self-govern. Freedom has made America exceptional, but it can only last as long as you and I seek the good, as expressed by the laws of nature and nature's God. It can only last if you and I choose to act as people of character. Forging character has been the pursuit of Hillsdale College since 1844.
Ever dream of escaping the daily grind? At Escapist Travel and Tours, we make those dreams your reality. From breathtaking adventures to cultural immersions, we offer escapes tailored just for you. Let us take you to places where every moment feels like a new chapter in your life's adventure. Visit www.escapist.travel or call us today at 1-855-885-81776. Your escape awaits.
Are you looking for a way to boldly express your faith and love for your country? And check out Seven Armors, the premier apparel company for patriotic men of God, where faith meets freedom in style. Our t-shirts are more than just clothing, they're statements. Bold, stylish, and meaningful. From timeless messages to modern designs, we've got something for every patriotic man of God. Wear your beliefs proudly with Seven Armors gear. Don't miss the chance to wear your faith and freedom on your sleeve. Visit 7armors.com today and join the movement. That's the number 7armors.com.
Welcome back to the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHR Media Network. It is still June 23rd, 2025. Please do me a favor, like and subscribe wherever you're watching from. The best place to watch from, though, is YouTube. If you like and subscribe, you can get in the chat and join all the other chatters that are in there, and it's just much, much better. But if you're in the other, like our good friend right here just showed up on Twitch, Whitmore Whitaker. Thank you so much for joining us, Whitmore, over on Twitch. So Cheetah said while we were at break, yeah, Iran could be a great country ultimately. I think about 80% of the country can't stand their leaders who want them back in the first millennium. Interesting to see the crown prince speak. Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly there, Cheetah. I think it's over 80%. I think the only people who don't want it to change are the ones in power and the ones who are related to them for the most part. So after the strike was announced in Iran, and by the way, that strike happened the first time I'd taken a nap in probably 6 months. Saturday afternoon, it was quiet in the house, nice and easy. I just laid down, taking a nap. About 15 minutes later, my phone went off telling me about the attack. And then we rushed and got onto air to talk about it. But one of the things that I see social media, I see it on X, I see it just as these unbelievably either uneducated who aren't even willing to Google something, or intentionally misleading idiots who are talking about how what Trump did in this limited strike was unconstitutional. The answer is no. If you look at Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution, the President is the Commander in Chief of Armed Forces, allows for military action without congressional approval. If you go to the War Powers Resolution of 73, it requires the president to notify Congress within 48 hours of military action. It did not say before, it does not say after, it says within 48 hours. And the reason I tell you the before and after thing, because a lot of people are like, why would they tell them after? Well, if we're doing a special forces raid and something where it is very quiet, I don't know, like this current raid that just occurred this past weekend, and we don't want anything leaked. By the way, hats off to Pete Hegseth and the Pentagon, because for the first time in 18 years, reporters are saying, specifically Jennifer Griffith over at Fox News, this attack was not leaked to media. For the first time that a major military incident went on, that the media was not informed prior to it happening. Operational security is back. And also, Trump notified the leaders of both parties. Hakeem Jeffries was not available, but he didn't tell any other Democrats, and it wasn't leaked on that end either. So the last administration, everything leaked. The administration before that, everything leaked. Before that, everything leaked. Before that, everything leaked. Blah, blah, blah. And I said the other night, it's because it's these nerds who want these journalists to love them. Oh, look at how important I am. I have this insider information, yada, yada, yada. They want to be they want their 5 minutes of fame. By cutting out Democrats and changing who got notified in the Pentagon, all of a sudden we have no leaks. Unbelievable. Before I go on and talk about the pant wedding, let's get some comments in the chat to get caught up. Cheetah, I think the Shah was on the right track, but paid too much homage to the Islamic religion for fanatical leaders like Khomeini. Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with that. I don't see anything wrong with what you just said there. The sheer number of academies, religious scholars, and tourists that would love to flock to the region and of Iran is insane. Yeah, I think in general people would flock to Iran if it was back to what it was in the 70s. Buffoon of the Week says, oh man, Jasmine Carr complaining that Trump acted on the weekend instead of hollering at her on Monday. Listen, lady, I got my weekends too, but come on. Yeah, and it's almost like Thomas Massey. Only could have called us back from vacation. Yeah, but why? Why? So we could debate about it for 3 days, and then Iran would know the attack was coming, and then have a leak and potentially lose some of our Air Force pilots? No, because it wasn't just the B-2s. They were escorted in. So there's operational security. Before and after, this is one of those times where he can tell them after the fact and still be legal. Limits on his authority, according to the War Power Resolution, deployment 60 days, and then if Congress doesn't approve, he has 30 days to withdraw. And the War Powers Act of 73 was essentially a way of Washington quieting people down who said, Vietnam was horrible. By the way, we lost Vietnam because the politicians wouldn't let the military do what it could have done. That's the only reason we lost Vietnam. Well, not lost, but left Vietnam the way we did. And the reason for that is the politicians were more worried that a Russian could get killed and create a bigger conflict. But then don't go into Vietnam if that's your concern, because we knew Vietnam had the Russians backing them in the north. Either way, that's what that response was. That was a response to essentially shut the voters up and say, we won't have another Vietnam. We're going to pass this War Powers Resolution of 73. And it changed absolutely nothing, because the wording on it is such that it's interpreted numerous ways. Imminent is a big word that's in that. And everyone says, well, what's the difference? This attack wasn't imminent. Imminent's not immediate. There's a big difference. You can look it up. Imminent just means it's happening in an amount of time that if we don't act now, it will affect us eventually. That's the long and short, like that's the layman's term of what imminent is. Immediate is missiles are in the air. It doesn't have to be immediate. The threat has to be imminent. And if, as we've seen now, even the UN's coming out saying that their enrichment levels were high enough, they don't have to get it deployed on a missile. And even if they did, they have the technology to go short term. They don't have to deploy it on a missile. They could deliver it via a boat and do a lot of damage via dirty bomb. Back to the comments. What I really want to know is why all of a sudden Iran went from death to America. We will never surrender to, yeah, we come to an agreement within 24 hours. Grim, I equate it to, the bully in the bar, the guy who's just like loud and boisterous, and he's been around for so long, everyone's just kind of used to it. And then like he screws with some new kid that walked in, and the new kid beats the bag out of him, and all of a sudden he's like, okay, all right, I guess I won't be an asshole anymore. That's the only way that I think it happened that way. Cheat in the chat says, saw some videos about the revolution, had the Shah's wife speaking, and some Khomeini loyalists cutting through the BS was a challenge. Oh, I'm sure. Journalist not able to research the Domino's app to get a lead. This is true. This is very true. Thinking about $2 billion worth of fire starter has something to do with it. Oh, incredibly. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons. Wasn't it amazing that all the illegal immigrant experts said became experts on Iran overnight? Hey, we did too. We did too. Quiet. You're ruining my whole show if you bring that up. Is it the Islam problem? The more Western they get, separated from the church state, the better. Fundamental Islam or just Islam as a total system? That's the real issue. Yeah, the full Islamists want us dead, and they think we're infidels. I mean, then plain and simple. You mean government cared more about covering their asses than changing something in regards to the War Powers Resolution Act? 100%. Oh man, and I'm trying to keep up with the chat. I will do my best, but I have a show and I only have 19 minutes to go. So some of the pant wetting, and these are the people. Buffoon of the Week brought up Jazzy, but there are other ones. This is unconstitutional, blah, 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 blah. The president should have notified us. First of all, they were pissed that they weren't notified. Well, maybe if some of you bastards knew how to keep your mouth shut and wouldn't. Look, I don't trust 98% of the Democrats not to run to a major news network to make Trump look bad. And I mean, I hate to say it, they would risk our military getting struck and destroy the operational security and informational security in order to get in front of a camera and make Trump look bad. Or try to make him look bad. They have yet to prove to me that they aren't those people. Senator Chris Murphy, that dweeb, launching bombs into Iran without congressional approval is reckless and could start a broader war. There was already a broader war going on. There was already a war going on. And look, Russia and China had already said, Iran, you better cut the shit. All the Middle Eastern countries around them have said, Iran, you better cut the shit. So yeah, I don't think that threat was there. I think once again, you just want to say something to try to make Trump look bad. Ilhan Omar, yet again, Trump plays cowboy with American lives. The world doesn't need more bombs. Tell that to your friends and relatives over in Somalia. Representative Ro Khanna, this is exactly the kind of unauthorized illegal military action Congress tried to prevent with the War Powers Act. Wrong. And the other thing that I mean, he's not wrong. Potentially he's correct, but the wording on it was weak. As I said, they were trying to appease voters and make it seem like this was never going to happen again. If you go through 86, Reagan, El Dorado Canyon with Libya, Clinton in 98, Operation Desert Fox strikes in Iraq, 2011 authorized strikes in Libya without congressional vote under Obama, Trump in 2020, Soleimani strike approval rating under the existing AUMF. By the way, when we're talking about unauthorized strikes without war powers, Barack Obama was the king of that. I would like to remind everybody that even though Anar al-Awlaki and his son were both pieces of shit, and they were pieces of shit. Thank you, Whitmore Whitaker. I appreciate you coming in. Have a great night. They were horrible human beings. Horrible. They were still American citizens. You look at all of the rights that the left is trying to say illegal immigrants have right now in our country with the deportations, and they have rights, and they have rights, they have rights. Technically, Anna Alawaki and his son both have the same rights as you and I do if we got arrested, even if it's for terrorism. We still have the same rights. Booking, right to a speedy trial, defense, all of it, Fourth Amendment, all of it. They're entitled to that, even if they get arrested abroad. Barack Obama said, no, I'm not going to go with any of that due process shit. And he blew them up with a drone. He blew up other American citizens too at a wedding with drones. Very few people complained about that on the left and the right. A few did, both of them, both sides. I'll give them credit at the time. But right now, it was probably 98% of Congress said nothing about it. Hey, they needed to die. They were bad people. Drone strike them. That's all that happened. And then, I don't know if you remember, but after the botched Afghanistan pullout, Biden ordered a drone strike on a car that they thought was involved in it, that it turned out being an aid worker, full of aid workers. I think 3 people died, carrying water to victims. Very few things said. I mean, they didn't say anything about the Afghanistan pullout anyhow, which was absolutely ridiculous. Most of the Democrats defended it. But I'll go on. Ben Rhodes, former Obama official. This could be Trump's Gulf of Tonkin moment. Doubtful. Joy Reid, this is not deterrence, it's provocation. And then the Lincoln Project said something about kids. The only person on the left who's made any sense about this, and I saw this today and I was blown away. I gotta find it because it was just
many times the emphasis.
So if you don't know who Van Jones is, Van Jones was under Obama, and I'm seeing all the comments. I'm trying. Call me tomorrow, Grim. It was good to see you, buddy. Appreciate you jumping in chat. We're here every Monday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific. Van Jones, who was an Obamaite, was the biggest Obama defender. He was also the big nothing burger person on camera. But Van Jones has been around the block a long time. Yes, John Fetterman gets credit for his words, mission ready men. I agree with you, but his actions still are his actions. And Van Jones said something that I couldn't believe. Absolutely couldn't believe. Here it is.
Van, we've seen this timeline before many times. The infrastructure bill, healthcare bill, 2 weeks has been used over and over again. What do you make of this use of these 2 weeks? Because it puts people on edge, right, for an extended period of time as they wait for a decision to be made.
Well, I mean, he's buying himself some time and some room. I was also in the Holy Land very recently. I think progressives underestimate how dangerous Iran is. Iran is not a normal country. Normal countries don't blind women because they showed some hair. They don't empower little gangs and proxies to surround a country and fire rockets and rape people. So Iran, the 2 things are clear. The what, they cannot have a bomb, and the why, because they say death to America, death to Israel, and death to all the Jews. One of those should offend you if you're progressives. At least one should offend you. And so the question, though, is the who and the how. Is Israel going to take out this nuclear capacity by dropping people there who blow it up? Or is America going to take it out by dropping a bomb that blows it up? But what and the why are clear, and I think progressives should get on board with that. We cannot have a nuclear-armed Iran. I was in the region. You were in the region. This is a very dangerous power that cannot get a nuclear.
That is just, the wrong person. There I am. It's just incredible to hear about that. And look, I think Van Jones saw the writing on the wall a couple of years ago. I think he realized that this ultra progressivism that's in this country, this constantly combative leftism, where no matter what you say or do, it's wrong in their eyes. I think he's smart enough to know that not being more in line during times like this with America and with each other. You know, I mean, you remember post 9/11, there was the meeting on the steps of Congress, things like that. I think more and more of the Democratic, and I'm not saying this isn't true from Van Jones's heart at all. I'm not saying that. This could very well be from his heart 100%. This is what he believes. But I think you're seeing more and more Democrats say we can't just constantly say every time Trump opens his mouth that he's wrong or bad or evil, because it's going to keep getting our asses kicked. And look, it is. I mean, you still you still have them fighting deportations when the majority of the country not only voted for it back in November, but they still approve of it today. Still approve of it today. They're still fighting against it. They're still pushing back against it. Has it gone entirely perfect 100%? Absolutely not. When you're deporting thousands of people at a time, there are going to be miscues, mix-ups, and problems. But does that mean that the people doing it are these inherently awful people who are just ripping people off the streets? No. They want to be right too, because they don't want to have to walk everything back and fix it. And they will have to walk everything back and fix it. I did not see this. Buffoon of the Week says, even Morning Joe complimented Trump. Yeah, I think a lot of the centrists did. And now that we're in this, if this peace agreement holds, which, it's yet to be seen because the times haven't happened yet. If the peace agreement holds, and then you had that peace agreement last week in Africa, then you have the Abraham Accords, and you had, I would think it was the president of Singapore nominate Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. They would lose their fucking minds if he got the same prize as Barack Obama did. Can you even imagine? By the way, Barack Obama got nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, and he was droning the shit out of everybody the entire time he was in office. So to say that Trump could be eligible is not a long shot. Politically, this should go well for Trump. I agree, Cheetah. I think this could change a lot of minds for kind of your centrist Jewish Americans who voted Democrat just because they've been voting Democrats for years. I think that last comment, I think Trump was secretly hoping Iran would strike LA with a nuke to stop the deportation riots. Thank you, Grimshaw. I think he knew they didn't have the stretch on their missiles for that yet, but anything's possible. No, by the way, the phone call already went out, just so everyone knows. If this peace agreement's in place, they can't have Trump looking good for that long, so the riots will resume in 3 to 5 days. Just so you know, now that the big worry is over, they have to go back to being the usual Democrat assholes that they are, all funded by Soros. I said on X earlier, and I said, the amount of money that they wasted of Soros money on T-shirts and flags supporting Iran, all of a sudden were a waste. Bishop already met on Obama. He said he got it in 2009 and he hadn't done anything yet. Yep. And he then proceeded to bomb everybody. Yeah. I mean, his drone strikes, and look, we're still in the throes of the war on terror. And I'm not even saying that his drone strikes were unwarranted on almost everybody, minus the few that I mentioned earlier. Like, these are all people who did kill us, try to kill us, whatever. I'm not necessarily saying that he was wrong to do so, but to somehow celebrate him as a peacemaker as he's dropping bombs. Well, I mean, right now, Trump's on the same path, right? I mean, he's kept us out of wars. He's ended wars and kept us out of wars, both administrations. He's getting people to sign peace agreements who were at war, and he could have potentially just ended this issue with Iran. So, yeah, where's his Nobel Peace Prize? Sean acting like he has it. Has a hot out at 11, like anyone would object to him keep blathering in the Boston language. I do have an 11 o'clock hot out. I do gotta go at 11 o'clock Pacific. All that Soros money could have gone to Alex and Huma's wedding. What a shame. Gosh. I don't normally, like, I'll talk about their politics. I mean, I guess I do go out. I make fun of people all the time. I don't know why I'm acting like I don't. But you want to talk about a weird, freaky couple, those two. First of all, people forget who Ahmadine is. They forget who she is, that she was like Hillary Clinton's right-hand woman. Like, she was going to, if Hillary Clinton got elected, she would have been her top advisor. Huma Abedin's got a real checkered past. Never mind her ex-husband Anthony Weiner showed his wiener to kids, and and all of that came up during the bleach bit thing with Hillary, and that whole that whole story. Maybe like in a couple months, I'll do like a special show on Huma Abedin and that whole circle of people and why they're all evil. I mean, and I mean they are evil. But I digress. I'll move on. So the stock market actually went up today. Oil prices dropped. I think it was like $8 a barrel. It went up over the weekend for the attack, but then it went back down. The market's up. It rebounded pretty quickly. Even from CNBC, it said markets love clarity even when it arrives via a stealth bomber. And just ending what's going on. I just buffoon of the week's got me twice tonight because I totally forgot about that until you said it. Oh, so Cosmic Bard's right. The blood on Huma's hands would make Dracula weep in ineptness. Yes, I agree. But then Cosmic Bard hits me with this in chat. Mrs. Carlos Danger, who, by the way, is poised to be elected as New York City Council tomorrow. The Carlos Danger name, back in the old Sackheads, when that story broke with Anthony Weiner, and remember, Anthony Weiner was like, his stock was flying up because of Huma. He was probably going to be beyond Congress. He was probably going to end up in the Senate and, maybe governor. He was going to be connected until the Carlos Danger was his screen name that he was sending naked pictures of himself under. And once again, I'm not saying that Republicans aren't always guilty too, but Democrats, when it comes to technology, absolutely hose themselves all the freaking time. Jersey Joe said it dropped 7.2%. The oil did. Thank you, Jersey Joe. Think about this. This is from Cheetah. How would it be going for the U.S. and the world if, gasp, Kamala, oh yeah, became president? No, look, Cheetah, I've told you before, when we're getting near the end of the show and I have to go to sleep soon, you can't be putting evil thoughts like that in my head. It frightens me, and then I stay up all night crying. Buffoon of the week, answer, you'll see it on certain times. Yeah, you will see it on certain times. There's no doubt about that. So my prediction, as we're wrapping up the show, and really what I think is going to happen, I think anywhere between now and 6 months, much like Trump with his within 2 weeks, I'll make a decision. Between now and 6 months, I think the Ayatollah is done. Either Israel's going to help the Iranian people or the Iranian people are going to do it themselves. I do not predict he will not be around for that long. I also predict that the Shah, who is now, once they can get, getting information on the Iranian people is the hardest thing, right? It's like getting into North Korea. If they can get the information and the Shah can be motivational and say, hey, look, I'll come back. I'll be in charge until we get a transitional government in. We'll set the country up how it used to be. We'll make things go right. We won't bring back necessarily the royalty part of it, but we will be a democratic country, which is what his big push has been. If he can get that out and sell it on the Iranian people, that this is for the best right now. This is for our future long term. This is for our chance to come into the modern world. This is our chance to be friends and allies and actually have growth and actually have your children be educated and fed, and you can have a job and you can have a good life. If they can cross that bridge with the Iranian people, then I think a year from now we're looking at a very, very, very different Iran. I also think that much like Iraq, that had a lot of issue with the Americans forcing the change, I think if the change is led from the inside and even from the Israelis and the Middle East itself, you will have a much more smooth transition. Look, if they open up the gates and all of a sudden they're showing up with food and all this other stuff, that alone can, hearts and minds, food's one of the most important things. But if they start giving them information, they start rooting out the bad players, and they're going to be, look, if the Ayatollah falls, there are going to be terrorist attacks. There's going to be violence for here and there in Iran. There's no doubt about that. It's sad. I wish it wasn't true, but it's going to be true. But that doesn't mean that the long-term goal to have a potentially other stable country and remove one of the most destabilizing countries in the Middle East and the world, to have that change, it's better for everybody all the way around. Um, my condolences go out to Lindsey Graham, they probably had to pull his shoelaces because he saw that there was a ceasefire on the table. So, Lindsey, I hope you're doing well. I'm sorry this happened to you the way it happened to you. That's it for me, folks. Right here on the Edge of Liberty on the SHR Media Network every Monday and Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast. You can follow me, the number 2 Against Tyranny. Make sure you check out everybody who's in our chat. They're all on X. And if you do just a little bit of research, you can find them really quick. Every Monday and Friday evening, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 on the East Coast, you have the Reaver of Common Sense, Jersey Joe, who has the producer. I know his last name is Malazi, but I can't remember his first name, but he's Stargate and Dark Matter. I'm not a sci-fi guy, but I can remember that much. So that's coming up, I think, this Friday. Check it out. And Tuesday and Thursday during the day, 9 p.m. Oh, he's going to correct me. 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 on the East Coast. You have Mission Ready Men with Big E, who is just fantastic show to watch. BZ is having technical difficulties. I don't think he'll be back tomorrow night. I think he's going to have the night off, but he will probably be back Thursday. So make sure you check him out. And you can follow all of us at SHR Media on X. Please like, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out. Look, we were up to 530 subscribers when I started the show. We were at 500 last week. It took us forever to break that mark, and now we're at 530. The taps are opening up a little. The more who watch, the more who follow, the more who like, the more who subscribe, you can get this message completely unfiltered. No mainstream press, no corporate money, just us bringing you patriotic good vibes and good truths and good facts. And I really hope that you will help us out. Take care of yourself. I'll talk to you Wednesday night. I'm going to go have a cocktail, shut down for the evening.